When tech billionaire Elon Musk gets a flat tire during a San Francisco rainstorm, he discovers something unexpected. Sheltering under the bridge, a homeless veteran named Garrett Wilson. What catches Elon's eye isn't just the man's military hat, but the carefully protected notebook he guards, even while soaking wet. Little does Elon know that this chance meeting is about to change both their lives forever. The mysterious notebook contains revolutionary battery technology that could transform the future of sustainable energy if only someone would listen to a homeless man's ideas. As Elon offers temporary shelter from the storm, neither man realizes they're about to embark on an extraordinary journey that will lead from the streets to Tesla's labs, from isolation to connection, and from despair to hope. But the journey won't be easy, and the notebook holds more secrets than either man suspects. Rain poured down on San Francisco like never before. The streets turned into small rivers, cars moved slowly through the water, and the sky was dark gray, even though it was only 5 in the afternoon. Elon Musk sighed as he felt his car bump and then tilt to one side. He had been on his way to an important meeting when he heard the loud pop of his tire. "Perfect timing," he muttered. He pulled his Tesla to the side of the road under the shadow of the Golden Gate Bridge. His driver, Hector, jumped out to check the damage. "Flat tire, sir," Hector said, rain dripping from his nose. "I'll call for help right away." Elon nodded and looked at his watch. He was going to be very late now. He pulled out his phone to send a message to his team. Outside, the rain beat against the window. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a boom of thunder. Through the foggy glass, Elon noticed something move under the bridge. He wiped the window with his sleeve and squinted. A man sat huddled against one of the concrete pillars. He wore a tattered green jacket that was too thin for this weather. A small cart filled with bags and what looked like cans sat beside him. The man hugged himself, trying to stay warm. "Sir, help will be here in 30 minutes, Hector said, climbing back into the driver's seat. "The storm is causing delays." Elon barely heard him. He kept watching the man under the bridge. Another flash of lightning lit up the area, and Elon saw the man's face clearly for a moment. He had a gray beard and deep wrinkles around his eyes, but what caught Elon's attention was the military-style hat the man wore. "Hector, do we have any umbrellas in the car?" Elon asked suddenly. "Yes, sir. 2 in the trunk, but why?" "I'll be right back," Elon said, already opening his door. "Mr. Musk, it's pouring out there in security protocol." But Elon was already stepping into the rain. He hurried to the trunk, grabbed an umbrella, and popped it open. The wind immediately tried to turn it inside out. Elon struggled against it as he made his way toward the bridge. His security team would be furious. They had strict rules about him approaching strangers, especially in isolated areas. But something about the man's face had stirred something in Elon. He couldn't just sit in his warm, dry car while someone suffered 20 feet away. As Elon approached, the man looked up. His eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with suspicion. "Evening," Elon said, trying to sound casual. "Nasty weather we're having." The man said nothing. Up close, Elon could see he was older than he first thought, maybe in his late 50s. His face was weathered, with deep lines around his mouth and eyes. Despite the dirt and fatigue, there was a dignity in how he held himself. "I thought you might like to get out of the rain for a bit," Elon continued. "My car is just over there. We've got a flat tire, and we're waiting for help. You're welcome to wait with us, where it's dry." The man studied Elon's face carefully. "You're that rocket guy, aren't you? The Tesla man." Elon smiled. "That's me, Elon Musk. Why would someone like you care if an old homeless vet gets wet? Because it's cold. You're a human being, and I have a warm, dry car," Elon replied simply. No strings attached, just a chance to get out of this storm for a while. The man seemed to consider this, then he slowly stood up. He was tall, at least 6 feet, but thin, too thin. "Name's Garrett," he said finally. "Garrett Wilson, and I appreciate the offer." He reached down and picked up a worn backpack and what looked like an old notebook wrapped in plastic. "Do you want to bring your cart?" Elon asked. Garrett shook his head. "Nobody's going to take that junk in this weather. I just need this." He patted the notebook gently. Together, they walked back to the Tesla. Hector's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he saw who was accompanying his boss. "Sir, I don't think." "It's fine," Elon said firmly. Mr. Wilson is joining us until help arrives. Garrett hesitated at the car door. I'm pretty wet. Might mess up your fancy seats. They'll dry, Elon said with a shrug. Please, get in. Once inside, Garrett looked around the car with interest but tried not to touch anything. Elon noticed how carefully he placed his notebook on his lap, keeping it close. Were you in the military, Mr. Wilson? Elon asked, noticing the hat again. Yes, sir. Army. Desert Storm. Seems like another lifetime now. Thank you for your service, Elon said sincerely. Garrett nodded. You know, I followed your SpaceX stuff whenever I could. The library lets me use their computers sometimes. What you did with those reusable rockets, that's something else. Elon was surprised. You're interested in rockets? I'm interested in smart ideas, Garrett replied. Before the Army, I was studying electrical engineering. Never finished, of course. Life had other plans. A silence fell between them. The rain drummed on the roof of the car. Elon found himself wondering how a man with engineering interests had ended up homeless under a bridge. How long have you been? Elon gestured vaguely. On the streets? Garrett finished for him. Going on for years now. Had a rough patch after my wife died. Medical bills took everything. Then the nightmares started. He tapped his temple. PTSD is a mean beast. Elon nodded, unsure what to say. He'd read about the struggles many veterans faced, but sitting next to someone who lived that reality was different. What's in the notebook? Elon asked, changing the subject. You seem pretty careful with it. Garrett's hand moved protectively over the plastic-wrapped book. Just some ideas. Drawings, calculations. Keeps my mind busy, you know? When you're on the streets, you need something to focus on besides how hungry or cold you are. May I see? Elon asked. Garrett shook his head. No offense, but people like you have people like me removed from parks and doorways. Why would I show you my ideas? Fair point, Elon admitted. Lightning flashed again, and thunder boomed so loudly the car seemed to shake. Garrett flinched, his body tensing, his breathing quickened. Elon pretended not to notice. He knew enough about PTSD to understand that drawing attention to it might make things worse. Sir, Hector interrupted, the tow truck is stuck in traffic. They say it might be another hour. Elon thought for a moment. Are you hungry, Mr. Wilson? There's a diner about half a mile from here. We could walk over, get something to eat while we wait. My treat, of course. Garrett looked surprised by the offer. Why are you being so kind to me? Elon considered the question honestly. I'm not sure. Maybe because you remind me that success and failure often hinge on luck and timing, not just hard work. Maybe because it's the right thing to do. Or maybe I'm just hungry and don't want to eat alone. A small smile appeared on Garrett's face. It transformed him, making him look years younger. Well, I never turned down a hot meal, he said, though I should warn you, I haven't had a shower in a while. I've worked 3 days straight in the same clothes before, Elon said with a laugh. Hector, we're heading to Pete's Diner. Call me when the tow truck arrives. As they stepped back into the rain, Elon noticed Garrett carefully tucking his notebook inside his jacket, protecting it from the water. Whatever was in that book clearly meant a lot to him. Little did Elon know that the rain-soaked chance meeting under the Golden Gate Bridge would change both their lives forever. The rain slowed to a drizzle as Elon and Garrett walked to Pete's Diner. Garrett walked with a slight limp, but he kept pace with Elon. People on the street did double takes as they passed. It wasn't every day you saw one of the richest men in the world walking beside a homeless veteran. Pete's Diner was a small place with cracked leather booths and walls covered in old photos of San Francisco. A bell jingled as they entered. The warm air smelled like coffee and fried potatoes. Sit anywhere you like, called a waitress without looking up. When she did look up, her mouth fell open. Oh my. You're just two hungry guys looking for a hot meal, Elon said with a smile. Is that booth in the back open? They slid into the booth, and Garrett carefully placed his notebook on the seat beside him. He seemed nervous, his eyes darting around the diner. Been a while since I sat in a real restaurant, he admitted. Usually it's soup kitchens or fast food when I can afford it. Order whatever you want, Elon said, opening his menu. I recommend the apple pie. It's amazing. Garrett studied the menu like it was written in a foreign language. Everything looks good when you're hungry enough. When the waitress came, Garrett ordered a full breakfast with extra bacon. Elon asked for coffee and a turkey sandwich. So, Elon said after the waitress left, you mentioned you studied electrical engineering. Garrett nodded. At UC Berkeley. Made it through 3 years before I enlisted. My dad got sick, and we needed the money in medical benefits. What made you choose engineering? A smile crossed Garrett's face. I was always taking things apart as a kid. Drove my mom crazy. Radios, toasters, anything with wires. By high school, I was building my own circuits. As Garrett spoke about his past, his eyes lit up. The tiredness seemed to fade from his face. After Desert Storm, did you go back to school? Elon asked. Garrett's smile disappeared. Planned to. But things got complicated. January 1992, Camp Doha, Kuwait. The explosion rocked the barracks. Garrett was thrown from his bunk onto the floor. Smoke filled the air. Men were shouting, Wilson, Wilson, get up! We got to move! Sergeant Martinez pulled him to his feet. Outside, the night sky glowed orange. A weapons depot had been hit. As they ran for cover, a secondary explosion sent shrapnel flying everywhere. Garrett felt something hot tear through his leg. Then came the pain. I took some shrapnel in my right leg, Garrett explained, rubbing his thigh. Nothing too serious, but enough to earn me a medical discharge and a small pension. That must have been difficult, Elon said. Their food arrived, steaming hot. Garrett stared at his plate like it was a treasure, but he waited until Elon picked up his sandwich before starting to eat. Came home with medals and nightmares, Garrett continued between bites. Tried to go back to school, but I couldn't focus. Loud noises sent me diving for cover. Crowded places made me panic. PTSD, Elon said. Didn't call it that back then. They just said I needed to adjust to civilian life. Garrett took a sip of coffee. Met my wife, Linda, at the VA hospital. She was a nurse. She understood what I was going through better than anyone. Elon listened as Garrett told him about building a life with Linda. They'd bought a small house in Oakland. At Gaul, Garrett found work as an electrician. They'd been happy. Then Linda got sick. She had cancer, Garrett said, his voice growing quiet. Fought it for 3 years. Insurance covered some, but not all. Used up our savings, took out loans, sold the house. I'm sorry, Elon said. Garrett nodded, pushing his empty plate away. After she died, I just broke. Couldn't work, couldn't sleep. Started drinking, lost my apartment. Been on the streets ever since. What about family? Friends? I've got a daughter, Ilila. She lives in Portland now. We don't talk much. My fault, not hers. As for friends, Garrett shrugged. Hard to keep friends when you're living under bridges. Elon was quiet for a moment. The lives they'd lived could not have been more different. While he'd been building companies and making billions, Garrett had been fighting just to survive each day. What about that notebook? Elon asked. You mentioned it keeps your mind busy. Garrett's hand moved to the plastic-wrapped book. Just some ideas. Probably nothing special to someone like you. Try me, Elon said. I'm always interested in new ideas. Garrett seemed to debate with himself. Finally, he said, I've been working on an energy storage system, something more efficient than current batteries. Elon's eyebrows raised. Really? What kind of system? It uses a combination of materials that... Garrett stopped himself. Look, it's probably nonsense, Saftullah. I don't have access to labs or computers, just what I can remember and work out on paper. Sometimes the best ideas start that way, Elon said. He pulled out his business card and slid it across the table. If you ever want to share those ideas, call me. Garrett looked at the card like it might bite him. Why would Elon Musk care about a homeless vet's scribblings? Because good ideas can come from anywhere. And because everyone deserves a second chance. The waitress brought the check, which Elon paid. As they prepared to leave, his phone rang. It was Hector. The tow truck just arrived, sir, Hector said. We'll head back now, Elon replied. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The air smelled fresh and clean. They walked back toward the bridge in comfortable silence. Mr. Musk, Garrett said, I appreciate the meal and the dry spot in your car. Not many people would bother. Call me Elon, please, Elon said. Thank you, but I should warn you, if this is some rich guy's charity project to feel good about yourself, I'm not interested. I may be down on my luck, but I've still got my pride. Elon smiled. Fair enough. No charity, but maybe an opportunity if you're interested. What kind of opportunity? Show me what's in that notebook and I'll tell you. Garrett stopped walking. You're serious? Completely. Garrett studied Elon's face, looking for any sign of mockery. Finding none, he slowly reached for his notebook. "Not here," Elon said. "Let me arrange something better. A proper meeting." They reached the Tesla, which now had a new tire. Hector stood beside it, looking relieved to see his boss. "Where can I reach you?" Elon asked. "I usually stay under the south side of the bridge or at St. Mary's Shelter on Tuesdays and Thursdays." Elon frowned. "That won't work. Let me put you up somewhere for a few days, a hotel where you can clean up, get some rest." Suspicion flashed across Garrett's face. "Why would you do that?" "Because I meant what I said about opportunities, and because something tells me that notebook might be worth looking at." Garrett ran a hand through his beard. "I don't know." "Just 3 days. 3 days. If you don't like what I have to say after that, you can go back to your life. No questions asked. Plus, you get a hot shower and clean sheets in the meantime." "When you put it that way," Garrett said with a small smile, "all right. 3 days." As they drove toward the hotel, Elon watched Garrett stare out the window, still clutching his notebook. Two different worlds were colliding today, a tech billionaire and a homeless veteran. But something told Elon that the man sitting beside him had more to offer the world than anyone realized, and that plastic-wrapped notebook might just hold the key to something extraordinary. The Fairmont Hotel lobby sparkled with crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. Garrett stood frozen just inside the entrance, looking completely out of place in his dirty clothes. "Mr. Musk," the hotel manager said, hurrying over. "What an unexpected pleasure." "Hello, James. I need a room for my friend Mr. Wilson here. Something comfortable, please." James looked at Garrett, his professional smile never wavering. "Of course, sir. Right away." While James arranged the room, Garrett whispered to Elon, "This place costs more per night than I see in a month." "Don't worry about it," Elon replied. "Consider it an investment." "In what?" "That remains to be seen." Once they reached Garrett's room on the 12th floor, even Elon was impressed. The suite had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Francisco Bay. The king-size bed looked like a cloud, covered in crisp white sheets and fluffy pillows. "There's a robe in the bathroom," Elon said, "and I'll have some clothes sent up. Get cleaned up, get some rest. I'll pick you up for breakfast at 8 a.m. tomorrow." Garrett hadn't moved from the doorway. He clutched his notebook to his chest. "I can't stay here," he whispered. I don't belong here." Elon turned to face him. "Where we belong isn't always where we find ourselves. Just give this a chance." He pointed to the phone. "Room service is available 24 hours. Order whatever you want." After Elon left, Garrett stepped cautiously into the room as if afraid he might break something. He placed his notebook on the desk, careful to make sure it was far from any water. The bathroom was bigger than some apartments he'd had. The shower had so many knobs and buttons, it took him 5 minutes to figure out how to turn it on. The hot water felt like heaven. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had a shower with water this hot, with real shampoo and soap. He watched as the water swirling down the drain turned from gray to clear, clean for the first time in weeks. Garrett wrapped himself in the plush hotel robe. A knock at the door made him jump. A bellhop delivered a package with jeans, shirts, underwear, and even new shoes, all in his size. How did he know my size? Garrett wondered aloud as he tried on the clothes. After ordering a burger from room service, which arrived in 20 minutes on a silver tray, Garrett sat at the desk and carefully unwrapped his precious notebook. The plastic had protected it from most of the rain and dirt of street life. The notebook itself was nothing special, just a composition book with a black and white speckled cover. But inside, nearly every page was filled with neat handwriting, diagrams, and calculations. Garrett opened to the first page, dated 4 years earlier, just after Linda died. The initial entries were scattered thoughts, grief-stricken ramblings, but gradually they evolved into technical notes, circuit designs, and energy flow calculations. He flipped through pages of detailed drawings, material specifications, and efficiency projections. Some pages had coffee stains, others had been crumpled and smoothed out again. This notebook had been his only constant companion through homeless shelters, park benches, and sidewalk camps. Would someone like Elon Musk really be interested in this? He wondered. The thought made him nervous. He'd protected these ideas for years, working on them whenever he could find a quiet corner in a library or a peaceful spot in a park. And now, one of the most powerful tech figures in the world wanted to see them. Should he trust Elon, or was this all some weird rich person game? Garrett's thoughts were interrupted by the soft mattress calling to him. He carefully rewrapped the notebook in clean plastic from the hotel's laundry bag and placed it under his pillow. Then he laid down on the softest bed he'd felt in years and was asleep within seconds. The next morning, Elon arrived precisely at 8 a.m., dressed casually in jeans and a dark blue sweater. Garrett was waiting in the lobby, wearing his new clothes. He looked like a different person, clean-shaven, hair trimmed, standing straighter. "You clean up well," Elon said with a smile. "The hotel offered a free haircut and shave," Garrett explained, running a hand over his smooth chin. "Feels strange after so long with a beard." "Hungry?" "Starving," Elon said, leading the way to a small breakfast place a few blocks from the hotel. It was busy, but not crowded with booths that offered privacy after they ordered. Elon leaned forward. "So about that notebook." Garrett hesitated, then reached into his jacket and pulled out the plastic-wrapped book. He set it on the table between them. "Before I show you," he said, "I need to know something. Why are you doing this? You're a busy man with companies to run. Why spend time with someone like me?" Elon considered the question. Honestly, at first, it was just basic human decency. You needed help, and I could provide it. But when you mentioned energy storage, he shrugged. "I'm always on the lookout for innovative ideas. My companies need them to stay ahead, and if my ideas are worthless, then you still get a few decent meals and a clean bed. No harm done." Garrett nodded, satisfied with the answer. He unwrapped the notebook and slid it across the table. "It's a new type of battery," he explained, as Elon opened it. "But not lithium-ion. This uses a different approach." Elon began turning pages, his expression giving nothing away. He paused occasionally to study a diagram or read a calculation. His breakfast sat forgotten. Garrett watched nervously, trying to read Elon's face. Was he impressed, confused, bored? Finally, Elon looked up, his eyes having a strange intensity. "How did you come up with this?" he asked quietly. "I had the basic idea before I joined the army," Garrett explained, "but it never worked right. Then, during the war, I saw how military battery systems were designed. It gave me some new ideas. Over the years, I kept refining it, reading scientific papers in libraries when I could." "This combination of materials," Elon tapped a page. "Have you tested it?" Garrett laughed. "With what equipment? I've been living under a bridge." "These efficiency calculations," Elon continued, flipping to another page. "They're unusually high." "That's the point," Garrett said, leaning forward. "The structure allows for much faster charging with less heat generation, and the capacity is potentially double current technology." Elon finished staring at the diagrams. "If this works, it will work," Garrett said with quiet confidence. "The physics is sound." Elon closed the notebook carefully. "I'd like my team to look at this. I have some engineers at Tesla who specialize in battery technology." Garrett's face showed conflict. "I don't know." "You'd be involved every step of the way," Elon assured him. "This is your idea. I'm just offering resources to develop it." "And what do you get out of it?" "If it works, Tesla gets first rights to use the technology. You get credit as the inventor, plus appropriate compensation." "Compensation?" Garrett repeated. "You mean money?" "Yes, money," Elon confirmed. "Potentially a lot of it if this performs as projected. But first, we need to test the concept." Garrett looked out the window, watching people hurry past. 24 hours ago, he'd been huddled under a bridge. Now, he was discussing battery technology with Elon Musk. It felt like a dream, one he might wake from at any moment. "What's next?" he asked finally. "I'd like you to meet with my chief battery engineer this afternoon. If he thinks this has merit, we can discuss options for developing a prototype." "And where would I stay during this process?" "Tesla can arrange temporary housing near the facility. Something comfortable, but not as fancy as the Fairmont," Elon said with a smile. "We can also get you proper clothes, a phone, whatever you need." Garrett wrapped his hands around his coffee mug, feeling its warmth. "This is happening very fast." "That's how I work," Elon replied. "When I see potential, I move quickly." The rest of breakfast passed in discussion of technical details. Elon asked pointed questions about materials, charging cycles, and temperature management. Garrett answered confidently, occasionally sketching small diagrams on napkins to illustrate his points. By the time they finished, Elon was convinced the homeless veteran's notebook contained something revolutionary. The question now was whether it could be built in the real world. As they walked back toward the hotel, Garrett said, "You know, most people wouldn't give someone like me the time of day, let alone breakfast and a meeting with engineers." "Most people judge books by their covers," Elon replied. "I prefer to read what's inside." He pointed to the notebook in Garrett's jacket. "And what's inside there might just change the world of energy storage forever." Garrett stood in the lobby of Tesla's engineering building, trying not to fidget. The clean clothes and fresh haircut helped him look like he belonged, but inside, he felt like an imposter. People in sleek outfits hurried past, badges swinging from lanyards. No one gave him a second glance. Elon Musk's guest badge opened doors without question. Elon had gone to fetch his chief battery engineer, leaving Garrett alone with his thoughts and his precious notebook. Part of him still couldn't believe this was happening. Another part was terrified it would all disappear like a dream. "Mr. Wilson," Garrett turned to see a woman with curly hair and glasses approaching. She wore jeans and a Tesla t-shirt under a lab coat. "I'm Dr. Amar Ali, head of battery engineering," she said, extending her hand. "Elon tells me you have some interesting ideas to share." Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine. Garrett relaxed slightly. "Just some thoughts I've been working on," he said modestly. I'm not sure they're worth your time." "I'll be the judge of that," she replied. "Elon's in a meeting with the board. He asked me to get started with you." She led him through security doors to a conference room with glass walls. Inside, a digital whiteboard took up one wall. The table was polished wood surrounded by comfortable chairs. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be great," Garrett said, his throat suddenly dry. When she returned with 2 bottles of water, Garrett had placed his notebook on the table but hadn't opened it. "Elon mentioned you developed this concept while—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "While facing challenging circumstances." Garrett appreciated her tact. "You mean while I was homeless," he said with a small smile. "It's okay, you can say it." Dr. Lee nodded. "That makes it all the more remarkable." "May I?" She gestured to the notebook. Garrett slid it toward her. "It's not very organized. Some pages are just me thinking out loud." Dr. Lee opened the notebook and began reading. Her eyebrows rose higher with each page turn. Occasionally, she murmured something to herself or made notes on a tablet. Garrett sipped his water and tried to stay calm. This brilliant scientist was judging years of his work done without computers, without labs, without proper resources. What if she laughed? What if she thought it was all garbage? After 20 minutes, Dr. Lee looked up, her eyes bright with excitement. "Mr. Wilson, this is fascinating work," she said. "Your approach to the electrode configuration is unlike anything I've seen, and this cooling system, brilliant." Relief washed over Garrett. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. We'd need to run simulations, of course, and there are material questions to resolve, but the fundamental concept—" She shook her head, impressed. "Where did you study engineering?" "Berkeley, but I never finished. Life got in the way." The door opened and Elon entered, looking slightly harried from his meeting. "Sorry about that," he said. "Board meetings always run long. What have I missed?" Dr. Lee turned to him, eyes still shining with excitement. "We need to pursue this, Elon. The theoretical energy density is at least 30% higher than our current cells. If it scales as Mr. Wilson projects, we could be looking at batteries that charge in half the time with significantly longer life cycles." Elon nodded as if this confirmed what he already suspected. He turned to Garrett. "So what do you think? Ready to turn this notebook into reality?" Garrett stared at them both. "You're serious? You actually want to build this?" "We need to test it first," Dr. Lee cautioned. "Run computer models, build small-scale prototypes. But yes, we want to develop it." "What would that mean for me?" Garrett asked. "Practically speaking." Elon sat down across from him. "We can offer you a 3-month contract as a special consultant housing near the facility, a reasonable salary, and access to our labs and engineers. If the initial tests are promising, we can discuss a more permanent arrangement and patent applications." Garrett's mind raced. A real job, a place to live, a chance to see his ideas built and tested. It was everything he dreamed about during those cold nights under the bridge. So why did he feel so scared? "What if I can't do it?" he asked quietly. It's been years since I worked in a real job. I don't know if I can function in this world anymore. You'll have support, Dr. Lee assured him. My team will help with the technical aspects, and Tesla has resources for employees, healthcare, counseling, if you want it. And if it doesn't work out, Garrett pressed, if the nightmares get bad or I can't handle being around people, then you walk away with 3 months' salary and my personal reference for any other job you might want, Elon said simply. No pressure, no obligations. Garrett looked down at his notebook, now open on the table. The pages represented thousands of hours of work done in libraries, on park benches, in homeless shelters. It had kept him sane when the world seemed determined to break him. Okay, he said finally. 3 months. Let's see if this crazy idea actually works. Elon smiled. Excellent. We'll start the paperwork today. The next few hours passed in a blur. Garrett signed documents, received a temporary badge, and was shown a small, furnished apartment near the Tesla campus. It was simple, but clean, with a bed, couch, television, and a kit fully stocked with basics. The lease is paid for 3 months, explained Maya, the HR representative who helped him. There's a company shuttle that stops right outside, or you can walk. It's only 10 minutes to the main building. She gave him a phone, a laptop, and a credit card linked to his new consultant account for meals and necessities. There's a spending limit, but it's generous, she explained. Garrett held the items awkwardly. It had been so long since he'd owned anything of value. The phone alone was worth more than everything he'd owned for the past 4 years combined. This all seems too good to be true, he admitted to Maya. Elon moves fast when he sees potential, she replied with a smile. You'll start tomorrow at 9 a.m. Dr. Lee will show you around the battery lab. After Maya left, Garrett stood alone in his new apartment. The silence was strange after years of street noise. The softness of the couch felt unreal after concrete and park benches. He placed his notebook on the kitchen counter, then walked to the window. The sun was setting over Silicon Valley, painting the sky orange and pink. Just 2 days ago, he'd been huddled under a bridge in the rain, wondering where his next meal would come from. Now, he had a place to live, a job, and people who believed in his ideas. It was terrifying. What if he failed? What if his ideas proved worthless? What if the nightmares came back, worse than before? What if he couldn't handle being around normal people in a normal job? Garrett's heart raced, his hands began to shake. He recognized the sign of an approaching panic attack. Breathe, he whispered to himself. Just breathe. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, and focused on slowing his breathing. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. A technique a VA counselor had taught him years ago. Gradually, his heart rate slowed, the trembling in his hands stopped, and the world stopped spinning. 1 day at a time, he told himself, just 1 day at a time. That night, he slept on the couch rather than the bed. The mattress was too soft after years of hard surfaces, but for the first time in a long time, he slept deeply, without nightmares. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Learning to work with others again, explaining his ideas to engineers with fancy degrees, navigating a world of badges, computers, and meetings. But for tonight, he was warm, safe, and filled with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. His last thought before drifting off to sleep was of his notebook sitting on the counter. After years of protecting those ideas, keeping them safe through rain and cold and desperation, someone was finally going to help make them real. It wasn't just a new beginning for his invention, it was a new beginning for Garrett Wilson. Garrett woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, panic seized him. Where was he? Then reality returned. The apartment, Tesla, Elon Musk, his notebook. After a quick shower, still marveling at having hot water whenever he wanted it, Garrett put on some of the new clothes Tesla had provided. Simple khakis and a button-up shirt. Professional but comfortable. The company shuttle arrived exactly on schedule. The driver smiled and checked Garrett's badge. First day? He asked kindly. Garrett nodded, feeling like a kid on his first day of school. That obvious, huh? He asked. Everyone looks a little nervous their first day. You'll be fine. At the Tesla campus, Garrett made his way to the battery research building. Dr. Lee was waiting in the lobby. Good morning, Mr. Wilson, she said warmly. Ready for the tour? As ready as I'll ever be, Garrett replied. The battery lab was enormous, with rows of computer workstations, and prototype assembly areas filling the space. People in lab coats moved purposefully from station to station. The air smelled faintly of electronics and coffee. "This is where we test new battery designs," Dr. Lee explained. "We can simulate years of charge and discharge cycles in just weeks." She introduced him to the team, engineers, chemists, and technicians who would help bring his ideas to life. Everyone was polite, though Garrett caught a few curious glances. He wondered if they knew about his background. "This," Dr. Lee said, opening a door to a smaller room, "is your workspace." The room had a desk with a computer, a digital drawing tablet, and a small workbench with basic tools. A whiteboard covered one wall. His notebook sat in the center of the desk. "We've scanned your designs," Dr. Lee explained. "The digital versions are on the computer, but we thought you'd want the original." Garrett picked up his notebook, oddly comforted by its familiar weight. "Thank you." "Elon will join us this afternoon," she continued. "This morning, I thought we could start talking through the materials list. Some of what you've specified might be hard to source." They spent the morning reviewing Garrett's designs. Dr. Lee asked thoughtful questions, never making him feel inadequate when he couldn't remember specific technical terms. "Your instincts about the thermal properties are spot on," she told him. "Though I'm curious, how did you calculate the discharge rates without computer models?" Garrett shrugged. "I used methods I remembered from engineering school, then added safety margins. Plus, the public library has some decent technical books if you know where to look." At noon, they took a break for lunch. The Tesla cafeteria was bright and bustling. Garrett felt overwhelmed by the noise and crowd. Dr. Lee noticed his discomfort. "Let's grab food and eat in the courtyard," she suggested. "It's quieter there." The outdoor space was peaceful, with tables scattered among trees and a small fountain. As they ate, Dr. Lee asked about his background. "Elon mentioned you were in Desert Storm," she said. Garrett nodded. "Army electrical specialist." He took a bite of his sandwich, chewing slowly. "Not something I talk about much. My father was in Vietnam," she offered. "He doesn't talk about it either." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Dr. Lee asked, "How did you end up?" She trailed off, unsure how to phrase it politely. "Homeless," Garrett finished for her. "It's a long story. My wife died, medical bills piled up, PTSD got worse, one thing led to another." He shrugged, as if summarizing years of hardship in a few sentences was normal. "I'm sorry," she said. "That must have been incredibly difficult." It was. Still is sometimes. Garrett looked around at the manicured courtyard and the well-dressed employees. "This feels like a different planet compared to where I was last week." Before Dr. Lee could respond, her phone buzzed. "Elon's here early. He's brought some people he wants you to meet. Back in the conference room." Elon was waiting with 3 people Garrett didn't recognize. They all wore serious expressions. "Garrett, good, you're here," Elon gestured to the newcomers. "These are some of Tesla's top engineers. I've shown them your designs, and, well, they have some questions." The oldest of the 3 stepped forward. He had gray hair and glasses that sat low on his nose. "Mr. Wilson, I'm Dr. Harvey Blackwell, Director of Advanced Research. I've been reviewing your notebook." His voice was deep and authoritative. "Frankly, I'm skeptical." Garrett's stomach tightened. "Here it comes," he thought. "They've realized I'm a fraud." "The design principles you've outlined," Dr. Blackwell continued, "are remarkably advanced. Some of these concepts are similar to theoretical papers our team published just last year. Yet you developed these while living under a bridge?" Garrett supplied a defensive edge to his voice. "Exactly. Without access to recent research, advanced computing, or testing facilities, it's unusual." "Are you suggesting I stole these ideas?" Garrett asked quietly. "Not at all," Elon interrupted. "They're suggesting the opposite, actually." Dr. Blackwell removed his glasses. "Mr. Wilson, your designs show intuitive leaps that our team, with all our resources, hasn't made. We're not questioning their origin. We're impressed." Garrett blinked, confused by the unexpected praise. "We believe your approach could revolutionize how we think about energy storage," said one of the other engineers, a woman with short silver hair. "The thermal management system alone could increase efficiency by at least 15%. "The question is," added the third engineer, a younger man with a neat beard, "how did you arrive at these solutions?" All eyes turned to Garrett. He swallowed hard, unsure how to explain years of quiet thinking, of calculations done on discarded newspapers, of ideas refined during sleepless nights on park benches. I had time, he said finally. Lots of time to think and libraries to read in. When it rained, university dumpsters full of discarded textbooks at the end of each semester. He shrugged. When you have nothing else, your mind becomes your workshop. Elon leaned forward. Garrett, we want to fast-track this. This project, these engineers agree. Your design could be exactly what we've been looking for. Fast-track? Garrett repeated. Dedicated team, priority resources. We could have a working prototype within months, not years. Garrett looked around the table at these brilliant people, all excited about his ideas. Ideas born from desperation and loneliness, scratched onto paper to keep his mind from breaking. There's something you should know, he said slowly. I was an electrical engineer before joining the military, not just a student. I worked at Lawrence Livermore Labs for a year. Surprise flickered across Elon's face. You never mentioned that. It was classified work, Garrett explained. Energy storage for military applications. Nothing like this design. That came later. But I had more background than I let on. He looked down at his hands. When you're homeless, people assume you're stupid or lazy. Sometimes it's easier not to correct them. Dr. Blackwell nodded thoughtfully. That explains the sophistication of your approach. But not how you leapfrogged current research without access to recent literature. Sometimes constraints breed creativity. Garrett said I couldn't rely on computer models or fancy labs. I had to think differently. Elon's eyes lit up. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, he said. He turned to the others. Let's get started immediately. Dr. Lee will lead the project team. Garrett will work directly with her. I want weekly progress reports. As the meeting wrapped up, Garrett felt dizzy with how quickly things were moving. Yesterday, he'd been homeless. Today, he was heading up a cutting-edge research project. Before everyone dispersed, Dr. Blackwell approached him. Mr. Wilson, I apologize if I seemed doubtful earlier. In my 40 years in the field, I've never seen someone develop something this innovative in such challenging circumstances. No offense taken, Garrett replied. I probably wouldn't believe me either. After the others left, Elon stayed behind with Garrett. Why didn't you tell me about Livermore? He asked. Garrett sighed. When you've been on the streets as long as I have, you learn to keep parts of yourself hidden. The more people know about you, the more they can use against you. I'm not your enemy, Elon said. I know that now, Garrett replied. He ran a hand through his hair. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday, I was worried about finding my next meal. Today, people are calling my ideas revolutionary. That's how innovation works sometimes, Elon said with a smile. One day, you're an outsider. The next, you're leading the way. He stood to leave. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow, you start building the future. As Elon walked away, Garrett sat alone in the conference room, trying to process everything. The revelation wasn't just that his ideas were valuable, it was that he still had value. That, despite everything he'd lost, his mind still worked, his knowledge still mattered. For years, he'd been invisible. Just another homeless vet that people crossed the street to avoid. Now he was seen, heard, respected. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. It was a chance he never thought he'd get, and it all started with a flat tire in the rain. Over the next few days, Garrett settled into a routine. He woke early, took the shuttle to the Tesla campus, and spent his days working with Dr. Lee and her team. His notebook gradually transformed into detailed digital designs and computer models. Though he still felt out of place sometimes, the work itself was familiar territory. His mind had never stopped being an engineer's mind, even when his body was sleeping under bridges. After a week, Elon called Garrett into his office. It was smaller than Garrett expected, cluttered with rocket models, car prototypes, and stacks of books. How's it going? Elon asked, clearing papers from a chair so Garrett could sit. Good, I think. Dr. Lee says the computer models are promising. They're more than promising, Elon replied. They're exceptional. The simulations show energy density 40% higher than our current batteries, with faster charging and better thermal control. Garrett nodded. That matches my calculations, but simulations aren't reality. Exactly. That's why we need to build prototypes, Elon agreed. Which brings me to why I called you here. He leaned forward. Your 3-month contract isn't going to be enough. Garrett's heart sank. Was he being fired already? Had he done something wrong? Seeing his expression, Elon quickly added, I mean, we need you for longer, much longer. I want to offer you a permanent position at Tesla, lead engineer for advanced energy storage. Garrett stared at him. Lead engineer? But I don't even have a degree, and I've been homeless for 4 years. Tesla hires talent, not paper, Elon said. You've shown more innovation in a notebook than many PhDs show in their entire careers. What about? Garrett gestured vaguely at himself. My issues, the PTSD, the panic attacks? Elon's expression softened. Tesla has excellent health benefits, including mental health services. We can accommodate whatever you need. Flexible hours, quiet workspace, therapy sessions. This isn't charity, Garrett. Oh, it's smart business. Your mind is valuable to us. Garrett looked down at his hands. They were cleaner now, the nails trimmed, but he could still see the scars and calluses from years of rough living. I don't know if I can be normal again, he admitted quietly. Who said anything about normal? Elon replied with a smile. Half the people working here are considered weird by society's standards, myself included. We don't want normal. We want brilliant. Despite himself, Garrett smiled. What would the job involve? Leading the team developing your battery technology, overseeing prototype construction and testing, and ultimately scaling it for mass production. If successful, the salary would be competitive, of course. Elon slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a job offer with a salary figure that made Garrett's eyes widen. This is a lot of money. It's market rate for someone with your expertise, actually slightly above market since we really want you to stay. Garrett thought about it. The past week had been overwhelming but good. His mind felt alive again, engaged with challenging problems. He hadn't had a nightmare in 3 days. I'm still adjusting to everything, he said slowly. Could we start with a 6-month contract instead of permanent? See how it goes? Smart, Elon nodded. Let's do that. 6 months, same benefits, same salary. If it works out for both of us, we'll convert it to permanent. One more thing, Garrett added. I want to use part of my salary to help other homeless vets. Maybe set up some kind of program? Tesla has a foundation that could help with that, Elon said. We could match your contributions, provide administrative support. They shook hands, and Garrett left Elon's office feeling dazed. From homeless to highly paid engineer in less than 2 weeks, it didn't seem real. Back in his workspace, Garrett opened his original notebook. The pages were worn, some stained with rain or coffee. He ran his fingers over the careful diagrams and equations. This notebook had been his only friend for years. When he was cold, hungry, and alone, these ideas kept his mind from breaking. They gave him purpose when everything else was gone, and now they might change the world of energy storage forever. But there was a problem. He hadn't told anyone about it yet, a dark thought that crept into his mind late at night when he couldn't sleep. What if he couldn't do this? What if, after years of homelessness and trauma, his mind wasn't what it used to be? What if he let everyone down? The next morning, Garrett arrived at the lab earlier than usual. Dr. Lee was already there, running simulations on the computer. Morning, she said brightly. I was just testing how the new electrode configuration responds to rapid temperature changes. How's it look? Garrett asked, peering at the screen. Better than expected. The heat distribution is nearly perfect. She turned to face him. You know, we've been working together for over a week now, but I still don't fully understand how you came up with this design. Garrett hesitated. Should he tell her about his doubts, about the fragility he felt inside? It's just a different approach, he said instead. Sometimes being outside the system gives you a different perspective. Well, whatever inspired it, I'm glad Elon found you, she smiled. Speaking of which, he told me about your new contract. Congratulations. Thanks. It's a big change. Change can be good, she said. Scary, but good. As they worked through the day, testing different aspects of the battery design, Garrett found himself thinking about change, how quickly life could transform for better or worse. 4 years ago, he'd lost everything. Now he was rebuilding, one day at a time. That evening, as Garrett walked back to his apartment, his phone rang. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. Hello? He answered cautiously. Is this Garrett Wilson? A woman's voice asked. Yes. Who's this? A pause. It's Lila, your daughter. Garrett froze in the middle of the sidewalk. His heart pounded in his chest. Lila, how did you... How did you find me? There was an article online, she explained, about Tesla hiring a formerly homeless veteran to work on some new battery technology. They didn't use your name, but they mentioned Desert Storm, and I just knew it was you. Garrett leaned against a wall, his legs suddenly weak. It's really good to hear your voice. I've been trying to find you for 2 years, Leela said, her voice cracking. Ever since Mom told me you were homeless, I hired a private investigator, checked shelters in San Francisco. I moved around a lot, Garrett said, made myself hard to find. I didn't want you to see me like that. I didn't care how you were living, Lila replied. I just wanted to know you were alive. Tears filled Garrett's eyes. I'm sorry, Lila. I'm so sorry for everything. Are you really working at Tesla now? She asked. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. Involves Elon Musk and a flat tire. Lila laughed, the sound bringing back memories of her childhood. I want to hear all about it. And Dad, I'd like to see you, if that's okay. I'd like that too, Garrett said, wiping his eyes. Very much. After they hung up, Garrett continued walking home, his mind swirling with emotions. His daughter wanted to see him. After years of shame and separation, he might have a chance to rebuild that relationship too. The offer from Tesla wasn't just about a job or money. It was about rejoining the world, about becoming whole again, piece by piece. But with each step forward came new fears. Could he be the father Leah needed? Could he handle the pressure of leading a high-profile project? Could he trust that this new life wouldn't disappear as quickly as it had appeared? That night, Garrett dreamed of his old life, the cold sidewalks, the hunger, the loneliness. He woke up in a panic, heart racing, body covered in sweat. For a moment, he thought he was back under the bridge. Then reality slowly returned. The apartment, the job, the future taking shape before him. The nightmare was a reminder that his mind still carried scars, just like his body. Recovery wouldn't be a straight line. There would be good days and bad days. But for the first time in years, the good days might outnumber the bad. 2 weeks after starting at Tesla, Garrett moved into a small apartment that he rented himself. It wasn't fancy, just a one-bedroom place with basic furniture, but it was his. He signed the lease with his own name, paid the deposit with his own money, and felt a surge of pride when the landlord handed him the keys. Home sweet home, he murmured, standing alone in the empty living room. He didn't own much. Tesla had provided him with clothes, a laptop, and a phone. Everything else, furniture, dishes, towels, he bought secondhand from thrift stores. After years of owning nothing, he found that he didn't want or need much. The only new thing he purchased was a desk for his bedroom, where he could work on his ideas in the evenings. Old habits died hard, and he still found himself scribbling in notebooks late into the night. Work at Tesla was challenging but rewarding. Dr. Lee's team had begun building small prototype cells based on Garrett's design. Early tests showed promising results. The energy density was even higher than the computer models had predicted. Your cooling system is the key, Dr. Lee told him one afternoon. It allows us to pack the cells closer together without overheating. Garrett nodded, but part of his mind was elsewhere. Tomorrow, Layla was flying in from Portland to see him, their first meeting in almost 5 years. He was terrified. Are you okay? Dr. Lee asked. You seem distracted. My daughter's visiting tomorrow, Garrett admitted. I haven't seen her since. Dr. Lee squeezed his shoulder gently. That's wonderful, Garrett. Family is important. What if she's disappointed? He asked quietly. What if I'm not the father she remembers? You're not, Dr. Lee said simply. You're different now. She probably is too. But that doesn't mean you can't build something new. That night, Garrett could barely sleep. He cleaned his apartment 3 times, though there wasn't much to clean. He picked up and put down a photograph of Layla that he'd kept through all his years on the street, a high school graduation photo, the last time he'd seen her. The next morning, he met her at a coffee shop near his apartment. He arrived 20 minutes early and sat nervously, watching the door. When she walked in, taller than he remembered, with her hair cut short, his breath caught in his throat. She spotted him immediately. For a moment, they just looked at each other across the room. Then Layla walked over, her eyes filling with tears. Dad, she whispered. Garrett stood up, unsure whether to hug her or shake her hand. Layla made the decision for him, wrapping her arms around him tightly. I missed you so much, she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. I missed you too, kiddo. he replied, using his old nickname for her. More than you know. Over coffee, they began the awkward dance of getting to know each other again. Layla was 27 now, working as a nurse in Portland. She was engaged to be married next spring. His name is Ryan, she said, showing Garrett a photo on her phone. He's a paramedic. That's how we met. He looks like a good man, Garrett said, studying the picture of a smiling young man with kind eyes. He is, Layla hesitated. I'd like you to meet him. Maybe you could come to the wedding. Garrett's heart swelled. I'd be honored. So, tell me about Tesla, Layla said, changing the subject. How did that happen? Garrett told her the story. The flat tire, the rain, the notebook. As he spoke, Layla watched him with a mixture of amazement and sadness. All those years, she said when he finished. Why didn't you reach out? I would have helped you. Garrett looked down at his coffee. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see what I'd become. And I was not well. The PTSD was bad. The depression worse. Are you getting help now? She asked gently. He nodded. Tesla has good health benefits. I see a therapist twice a week. There's medication helping too. I'm glad, Layla said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. Really glad. After coffee, Garrett showed her his apartment. It was sparse but clean, with a few plants he'd bought to make it feel more like a home. It's a start, he said, feeling suddenly self-conscious about how little he had. It's perfect, Layla replied, looking around with approval. You always did like keeping things simple. They spent the rest of the day walking around the neighborhood, talking, catching up on 5 missing years. There were awkward silences and painful topics, but also laughter and memories of better times. When Layla left to return to her hotel that evening, she hugged him again. I'm proud of you, Dad, for getting help, for starting over. I'm proud of you too, he said, for the woman you've become. Your mother would be so proud. After Layla left, Garrett sat on his small balcony watching the sunset. The day had been emotionally exhausting, but healing. Another piece of his life was starting to mend. The next morning at work, Garrett felt lighter somehow. He dove into the project with renewed energy, making adjustments to the prototype design and suggesting new testing protocols. Someone's in a good mood, observed Maya Patel, one of the younger engineers on the team. Maya had been assigned to help Garrett navigate Tesla's complex computer systems, which had changed drastically during his years away from technology. My daughter visited yesterday, Garrett told her. First time in years. That's amazing, Maya said. Family reconnections are special. Over the next few weeks, Garrett found himself becoming friends with Maya. She was brilliant, enthusiastic, and never made him feel stupid when he struggled with new technology. She was also patient with his occasional anxiety attacks and mood swings. My brother has PTSD from Afghanistan, she explained one day, after helping Garrett through a difficult moment. I recognize the signs. Does it get better? Garrett asked. For your brother, I mean. Maya considered this. Some days are better than others. But yes, over time, the good days start to outnumber the bad. Encouraged by his success with Layla and his friendship with Maya, Garrett began taking small steps to rebuild his life beyond work. He joined a veteran support group that met weekly. He started volunteering at a homeless shelter on Saturday mornings, helping other vets navigate the complicated system of benefits and services. Each small step was a victory, but challenges remained. Sometimes he still woke in the night, convinced he was back on the streets. Sometimes crowds or loud noises at work triggered panic attacks that sent him hiding in bathroom stalls until he could breathe normally again. And sometimes, despite all evidence to the contrary, a voice in his head whispered that he didn't deserve this second chance, that it was all a mistake, a dream that would evaporate like morning dew. It's called imposter syndrome, his therapist explained. It's common among high achievers, especially those who've experienced trauma or significant life changes. But what if they're right? Garrett asked. What if I'm not good enough to lead this project? The evidence suggests otherwise, she replied gently. The prototypes are working. Your team respects you. Elon Musk himself chose you for this position. Garrett nodded, trying to believe her. Some days it was easier than others. 1 month into his contract, the first full-size prototype of what the team now called the Wilson battery was ready for testing. Everyone gathered in the lab, watching as the battery was connected to monitoring equipment. Moment of truth, Dr. Lee said, nodding to a technician to begin the test. Garrett held his breath as the first charging cycle began. Numbers flashed on screens, graphs began forming, and temperature readings held steady. "It's working," Maya whispered beside him. "Garrett, it's working exactly as you predicted." As the test continued, the data confirmed what Garrett had calculated years ago, huddled under bridges and in library corners. His design charged faster, held more energy, and managed heat better than anything Tesla had built before. The lab erupted in cheers. People patted Garrett's back, shook his hand, congratulated him. Dr. Lee announced an impromptu celebration in the break room. In the midst of the excitement, Garrett slipped away. He found a quiet corner in an empty conference room and sat down, overwhelmed by emotion. His ideas worked. They really worked. All those years of thinking, calculating, refining, they hadn't been the delusions of a broken mind. They were real, valuable innovations that might change the future of energy storage. For the first time since he'd left the streets, Garrett allowed himself to fully believe that this new life might be permanent. That he wasn't just visiting the world of the functioning, the employed, the housed. He was rejoining it. He wasn't fixed. The PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, they were still there, shadows lurking at the edges of his mind. But he was learning to live with them, to work around them, sometimes even to use them as fuel for his creativity. He was starting over, not from scratch, but building on the foundation of who he'd been before and what he'd learned during those hard years, creating something new from the broken pieces of his old life. Just like his battery design, news of the successful prototype spread quickly through Tesla. The next morning, Elon himself came to the lab to see the test results. "These numbers are incredible," he said, studying the screens. "If we can scale this up for production, it could revolutionize our entire vehicle line, not to mention the energy storage business." Garrett stood nearby, still not entirely comfortable in Elon's presence, despite their growing professional relationship. "There's still a lot of testing to do," he cautioned. "We need to verify the long-term stability, run safety protocols, check degradation rates." "Always the engineer," Elon said with a smile. "But you're right, of course. Do the testing, but I'm also putting together a production feasibility team. I want to be ready to move quickly once the testing is complete." After Elon left, Dr. Lee turned to Garrett. "He's impressed, and Elon doesn't impress easily. You should be proud." "I am," Garrett admitted. "It's just strange. For years, these ideas were just scribblings in a notebook that no one cared about. Now, they're being called revolutionary." Over the next 2 weeks, the team conducted extensive testing on the prototype. They simulated thousands of charge-discharge cycles, exposed it to extreme temperatures, and even performed controlled puncture tests to assess safety. The results consistently exceeded expectations. The Wilson battery, as everyone now called it, maintained its performance advantage through every challenge. "We need to test it in a real vehicle," Garrett suggested during a team meeting. "Lab conditions are one thing, but I want to see how it performs on the road." Dr. Lee agreed. "I'll request a test vehicle from the production team. We can install a prototype pack and gather real-world data." 2 days later, Garrett found himself in the passenger seat of a modified Tesla Model S, with Maya driving and a laptop monitoring the battery performance. "How does it feel to see your invention in action?" Maya asked as they drove through the hills outside Palo Alto. "Surreal, but good." The test drive was a complete success. The battery not only provided greater range than the standard pack, but also charged significantly faster at the supercharger station. As word of the successful road test spread through the company, Garrett found himself becoming something of a celebrity at Tesla. People he'd never met would stop him in hallways to congratulate him or ask questions about the technology. The attention made him uncomfortable. Years of being invisible on the streets had made him wary of being noticed. Sometimes, when too many people crowded around, he would feel his chest tighten and his hands start to shake, the beginning of a panic attack. On those days, he would find a quiet corner, practice his breathing exercises, and remind himself that he was safe, that these people meant him no harm, and that he belonged here now. Maya noticed his struggles and often ran interference, redirecting attention when she saw him getting overwhelmed. She never mentioned it directly, just quietly made things easier for him. You don't have to protect me, Garrett told her one day after she had skillfully diverted an overeager group of interns. I know I don't have to, she replied, but that's what friends do. They look out for each other. Friends. The word still felt new to Garrett. After years of isolation, he was slowly building connections again. Maya, Dr. Lee, even Elon in his busy, distracted way, and Layla, of course. They spoke weekly now, rebuilding their relationship one conversation at a time. She had sent him an official invitation to her wedding, along with a handwritten note that he kept on his refrigerator door. Can't wait for you to walk me down the aisle, Dad. 6 weeks after the successful road test, a new challenge emerged. The team was working to scale up production of the battery cells when they discovered an inconsistency in the manufacturing process. Cells produced in large batches didn't perform as well as the hand-built prototypes. The electrode coating isn't uniform at scale, Dr. Lee explained, showing Garrett microscope images. It's causing hotspots during charging. Garrett studied the images, frowning. We need to adjust the manufacturing process. The alignment is critical for the cooling system to work properly. The team worked day and night trying to solve the production problem. Engineers from Tesla's manufacturing division joined the project, bringing their expertise to the challenge. After 2 weeks of frustration and failed attempts, Garrett was exhausted. The pressure was building. Everyone was looking to him for answers. And for the first time since joining Tesla, he wasn't sure he had them. One evening, after most people had gone home, Garrett sat alone in the lab, staring at failed test cells under a microscope. His eyes burned from fatigue. His head pounded. You should get some rest, Maya said, startling him. He hadn't realized she was still there. I can't, he said. We're so close. Elon's already talking about production timelines, and we can't even make consistent cells. Pushing yourself to collapse won't solve anything, she countered. When was the last time you ate? Garrett couldn't remember. Sensing his answer, Maya sighed and pulled him away from the microscope. Come on, we're getting dinner, and then you're going home to sleep. The problem will still be here tomorrow. Over pizza at a nearby restaurant, Maya got Garrett talking about subjects other than batteries, his daughter's upcoming wedding, a book he'd been reading, a veteran program he wanted to start. You're more than this project, you know, she told him. Even if we never solve this production issue, which we will, you've already done something amazing. It doesn't feel amazing when we're stuck, Garrett admitted. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before he made a working light bulb, Maya reminded him. He said he didn't fail. He just found thousands of ways that wouldn't work. Garrett smiled despite himself. Are you calling me Edison now? Maybe, she teased, though hopefully with better hair. That night, Garrett slept better than he had in weeks. When he woke, his mind felt clearer. On his way to work, he took a detour to the beach, something he hadn't done since joining Tesla. He sat on the sand, watching the waves roll in, letting his mind wander. The solution came to him, not in a flash of inspiration, but in a quiet realization. They had been approaching the problem from the wrong direction, trying to adapt the manufacturing process to the battery design. What if they adapted the design to work better with existing manufacturing techniques instead? Garrett hurried to the lab and began sketching a modified electrode configuration. It maintained the key innovations of his original design but simplified the manufacturing requirements. When Dooley arrived, he explained his idea. It's a compromise. On paper, theoretical efficiency drops by about 3%, but if we can manufacture it consistently, the real-world performance will actually be better. The team quickly developed prototypes based on the new design. The manufacturing process worked smoothly, producing cells with consistent performance. Sometimes a small step back leads to a big leap forward, Dr. Lee told Garrett as they reviewed the test results. Your willingness to adapt the design saved the project. 2 months later, Tesla announced a special event at their headquarters. Rumors spread through the tech community about a major battery breakthrough. Journalists and industry analysts speculated about what Elon might reveal. The day before the event, Garrett received an unexpected email. A reporter had somehow discovered his identity and wanted to interview the homeless genius behind Tesla's new battery. The email mentioned details about his past that only someone who had investigated him could know. Panic filled Garrett's chest. He had been careful to keep a low profile, not wanting his past to overshadow his work. The thought of becoming a public figure, of strangers knowing his history, judging him, perhaps pitying him, was terrifying. He forwarded the email to Elon, hands shaking as he typed a brief explanation. "I don't want this kind of attention. I'm not ready." Elon's response came within minutes. "Leave it to me. Your privacy will be respected." The next day, as Garrett prepared for the event, Maya stopped by his office. "Are you nervous about the announcement?" "A little," he admitted. "Mostly, I'm worried about becoming visible. I spent years being invisible, and in some ways, that was safer." Maya nodded, understanding. "Fame isn't all it's cracked up to be, but remember, you control your story, Garrett, no one else." The event hall was packed with people. Garrett sat in the front row beside Dr. Lee and the rest of the team. On stage, a cloth-covered object sat on a pedestal, the first production model of the Wilson battery pack. When Elon took the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. He began by discussing the challenge of energy storage, the limitations of current technology, and Tesla's commitment to innovation. "Today, I'm proud to announce a breakthrough in battery technology that will transform our vehicles and energy products," Elon said. "We call it the Wilson battery, and it represents the most significant advance in energy storage in over a decade." As Elon unveiled the battery pack and explained its advantages, Garrett felt a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. This was his creation, born from desperate calculations in a tattered notebook, refined in homeless shelters and under bridges, now becoming reality on a global stage. The engineer who developed this technology, Elon continued, has requested privacy at this time. But I want to acknowledge that great innovations often come from unexpected places and challenging circumstances. Tesla is proud to have discovered this talent and brought this technology to life. After the presentation, as journalists swarmed Elon with questions, Garrett slipped quietly backstage. He found a moment of solitude in an empty hallway, taking deep breaths to calm his racing heart. "There you are," came a familiar voice. Garrett turned to see Lila walking toward him, smiling broadly. She had flown in specially for the event. "Did you see it?" he asked. "Did you see what we built?" "I did," she said, hugging him tightly. "And I'm so proud of you, Dad. So incredibly proud." That evening, Tesla hosted a celebration for the team. As Garrett looked around at the people who had helped bring his idea to life, engineers, technicians, designers, he felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. Dr. Lee raised a toast to the Wilson battery and to second chances. Garrett raised his glass, meeting the eyes of his colleagues, his friends. From the depths of homelessness to the cutting edge of technology, from isolation to community, from despair to purpose, it was more than a technological breakthrough. It proved that broken things could be rebuilt, that lost potential could be reclaimed, that it's never too late for a new beginning. The weeks following the announcement were a whirlwind. Tesla's stock price soared as investors recognized the potential of the Wilson battery. Production preparations began at the Gigafactory in Nevada. Garrett's 6-month contract was converted to a permanent position with stock options that could make him wealthy if the batteries succeeded in the market. But with success came pressure. Despite Elon's efforts to protect Garrett's privacy, rumors spread. Tech blogs published theories about the mysterious engineer behind the breakthrough. Some got uncomfortably close to the truth. Mr. Wilson, Tesla's head of security, said one morning, appearing at Garrett's office door, "We need to discuss some security measures." The conversation that followed left Garrett uneasy. Key cards with extra security features, parking in a reserved section of the garage, suggestions to vary his route to work, perhaps most concerning, a recommendation to move to a more secure apartment building. "Is this really necessary?" Garrett asked. "We take the safety of our key personnel very seriously," the security chief replied, "especially when groundbreaking technology is involved. Industrial espionage is a real concern." That evening, Garrett called Lila to share his concerns. "It's like I'm trading one kind of fear for another," he told her. "Before, I was afraid of not having shelter, not having food. Now, I'm afraid of being followed or having my ideas stolen." "That's progress, though, isn't it?" Lila asked. "Your fears now are about protecting something valuable you've created, not just surviving." "I guess," Garrett admitted. "It's just strange." "How's the wedding planning going?" he asked. changing the subject. Good. Ryan's parents are coming next weekend to meet me. We're finalizing the guest list for next month. After they hung up, Garrett sat on his balcony watching the sunset. His life had changed so dramatically in just a few months that sometimes it felt like he was living someone else's story. The next morning at work, Garrett noticed something odd in the latest test results. The newest batch of production spec batteries showed a slight decrease in capacity after rapid charging, something that hadn't appeared in earlier tests. It's within acceptable parameters, Dr. Lee assured him when he pointed it out. All batteries degrade somewhat. But ours shouldn't, not this way, Garrett insisted. The cooling system should prevent this type of capacity loss. Let's run more tests, Dr. Lee suggested. Maybe it's just a measurement error. But it wasn't an error. Additional tests confirmed a small but consistent capacity loss in batteries that underwent repeated fast charging. It wasn't enough to delay production. The performance was still far better than competing technology, but it bothered Garrett deeply. The problem nagged at him. He stayed late at the lab running tests and reviewing data until his eyes burned. He brought work home, covering his kitchen table with printouts and calculations. He stopped attending his veteran support group. He canceled plans with Maya. You're obsessed. Maya told him when she found him in the lab at 10 p.m. on a Friday. The battery exceeds all the target specifications, she said. A 2% capacity loss after hundreds of rapid charges is nothing to lose sleep over. It's not about the numbers, Garrett tried to explain. It's about understanding why it's happening. If there's an underlying flaw in my design, then we'll fix it. But you can't fix anything if you burn yourself out, Maya said gently. But Garrett couldn't let it go. The small flaw in his perfect design became a symbol of all his insecurities. If he'd missed this, what else had he gotten wrong? Was he really the genius everyone thought he was, or just lucky? The doubts that had plagued him since his first day at Tesla grew stronger. The voice in his head that whispered he didn't belong here, didn't deserve this success, grew louder. One morning, 3 weeks after the announcement, Garrett didn't show up for work. He didn't answer his phone. When Maya went to his apartment to check on him, he wasn't there. His laptop was gone, but his phone was still there. His medication is on the bathroom counter, Maya told Dr. Lee. It looks like he left in a hurry. Dr. Lee called Elon, who immediately authorized a search. The security team reviewed camera footage. Maya called Lila, who hadn't heard from her father in 2 days. He's been under a lot of pressure. Lila said, worry clear in her voice. He told me he was having trouble sleeping, that he felt like a fraud. Garrett's disappearance quickly became a crisis, not just because of his importance to the battery project, but because everyone feared what might have happened to a man with his history of PTSD and homelessness. Check the shelters, Elon told the security team. Check under the Golden Gate Bridge. That's where I first met him. Maya took that task for herself. She drove to San Francisco and walked the same path Elon and Garrett had taken that rainy night months ago. The weather was better now, sunny and mild, but the area under the bridge still held a profound sadness, a reminder of how fragile security could be. She almost missed him sitting in the shadow of a concrete pillar. Garrett wore a hoodie, pulled low over his face. He stared out at the water, a notebook open on his lap. Garrett? Maya approached slowly, not wanting to startle him. He looked up, his face haggard from lack of sleep. Maya, he said, how did you find me? Elon told me this is where you were staying when he first met you. She sat down beside him, not touching him, giving him space. Everyone's worried about you. I needed to think, he said, to clear my head. Under a bridge? Maya asked gently. Familiar territory, Garrett said with a humorless laugh. When everything got too overwhelming, I guess I fell back into old patterns. The capacity loss issue? Garrett nodded. It's more than that, though. It's everything. The attention, the expectations, the fear of failing. Sometimes I think it was easier when no one expected anything from me. Maya was quiet for a moment. When I was 11, she said finally, my math teacher entered me in a state competition. I won first place. Suddenly, everyone expected me to be a math genius. My parents, my teachers, they all wanted me to be special. Were you special? Garrett asked. I was good at math, Maya shrugged. But the pressure to be extraordinary nearly crushed me. I stopped enjoying it, started having panic attacks before tests. What happened? I failed a big competition. Completely froze. Everyone was so disappointed. She picked up a small stone and tossed it toward the water. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Garrett looked at her questioningly. Once I'd failed publicly, the pressure eased. I could just be good at math, not perfect at it. I could make mistakes. I could learn. She turned to face him. Garrett, no one expects you to be perfect. The battery doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing real ever is. But Elon knows that engineering is about trade-offs and compromises. The capacity loss is minor compared to the advantages. We can work on it for the next generation. Garrett looked down at his notebook. Maya could see it contained calculations and diagrams. He'd been working on the problem, even here, under the bridge. I think I know what's causing it, he said quietly. There's a reaction at the electrode boundary that we didn't account for. It only happens after multiple rapid charge cycles. Then we'll fix it, Maya said simply. Together. But first, you need to come back. People are worried sick, especially your daughter, Garrett winced. Lee, I didn't think I should call her. You can call her from the car, Maya said, standing and offering her hand. Let's go home. Garrett hesitated, then took her hand and stood. I'm sorry for worrying everyone. It's okay to struggle, Maya told him as they walked back to her car. It's okay to need help sometimes. Just don't disappear again, please. I won't, Garrett promised. I just needed to remember where I came from, to remind myself that I survived worse than a slight battery capacity loss. When they returned to Tesla, Garrett went straight to Elon's office to apologize. He expected anger or disappointment, instead found concern. Are you all right? Elon asked immediately. I am now, Garrett replied. I'm sorry for disappearing. It won't happen again. We all have breaking points, Elon said with surprising gentleness. I've hit mine more than once. The question is whether you can come back stronger. I think I can, Garrett said. I believe I've identified the cause of the capacity loss issue. With your permission, I'd like to put together a small team to work on a solution for the next generation battery. Granted, Elon said, without hesitation, but on one condition. You start seeing your therapist twice a week again, and you take weekends off. Burning out helps no one, especially yourself. Deal, Garrett agreed. That evening, Garrett met with Dr. Lee and Maya to explain his theory about the capacity loss. As they discussed potential solutions, he felt the fog of doubt and anxiety beginning to lift. The problem wasn't insurmountable. It was just another engineering challenge to overcome. Later at home, Garrett called Lila. He apologized for worrying her and promised to be more open about his struggles. I'm still learning how to handle everything, he admitted. Sometimes it all gets overwhelming. I understand, Dad, Leah said. Just remember, you're not alone anymore. You have people who care about you now. After they hung up, Garrett looked around his small apartment. On the refrigerator door hung Lila's wedding invitation. On the coffee table sat the technical books Maya had loaned him. On his desk were notes from his therapy sessions. All reminders that he wasn't alone, that it was okay to struggle sometimes, that setbacks didn't mean failure. The capacity loss problem would be solved, maybe not tonight or tomorrow, but eventually, because that's what engineers did. They solved problems. They made things better, one step at a time. And sometimes the most important things they fixed weren't batteries at all, but themselves. The next morning, Garrett arrived at the lab early. He had slept better than he had in weeks, as if the weight of trying to be perfect had finally lifted from his shoulders. On his desk, he found a small potted cactus with a note from Maya, like you, tough, resilient, and thrives in harsh conditions. Garrett smiled and placed the plant by his window. Then he opened his notebook and began sketching a new electrode design that might solve the capacity loss problem. Dr. Lee joined him an hour later. Welcome back, she said simply. What are we working on today? I think we need to modify the electrode boundary, Garrett explained, showing her his sketches. The current design works great for normal charging, but under repeated rapid charging, there's a chemical reaction we didn't anticipate. Together, they refined the concept, bringing in specialists from the materials team to discuss options. By lunchtime, they had 3 possible approaches to test. This won't delay the current production, right? Garrett asked, suddenly concerned about the impact on Tesla's plans. Not at all, Dr. Lee assured him. The first-generation Wilson battery is still revolutionary. We'll implement these improvements in version 2. That's how progress works, continuous improvement. During the afternoon meeting, Elon stopped by briefly to check on the team. "Glad to see you back, Garrett," he said. "How's the capacity loss issue coming along?" "We have some promising approaches," Garrett replied. "I think we can eliminate it entirely in the next version." "Good. Innovation is never a straight line. It's all about solving problems as they arise." Elon glanced at his watch. "I have to run to another meeting, but Maya mentioned you have ideas for a veterans program." "Yes," Garrett said, surprised that Elon remembered. "I'd like to create a training program for homeless veterans, teaching them technical skills that could lead to jobs. Set up a meeting with the Tesla Foundation next week," Elon said. "I think there's something there worth pursuing." After Elon left, the team continued working on the electrode modifications. By the end of the day, they had designed test cells incorporating each of the 3 approaches. The lab technicians would build them overnight, ready for testing tomorrow. As Garrett packed up to leave, Maya appeared at his door. "A bunch of us are going for dinner at that Thai place you like," she said. "Want to join?" A few months ago, Garrett would have declined, finding an excuse to avoid social interaction. But now, he found himself nodding. "I'd like that," he said. Dinner with his colleagues was surprisingly enjoyable. They talked about work a little, but also movies, books, and plans for the weekend. Garrett mostly listened, but occasionally joined the conversation. These people weren't just coworkers anymore, they were becoming friends. Over the next few days, the team tested the modified electrode designs. 2 showed promise, but the third, Garrett's original concept, performed exceptionally well. After 50 rapid charge cycles, it showed no measurable capacity loss. "This is remarkable," Dr. Lee said, reviewing the data. "If these results hold up in large-scale tests, we've solved the problem completely." The success energized Garrett. He felt a renewed confidence, not just in his technical abilities, but in his place at Tesla. He belonged here, not because he was perfect, but because he could identify problems and help solve them. Outside of work, Garrett continued to rebuild his life. He resumed attending his veterans support group. He helped Lila with wedding plans during their weekly calls. He even agreed to meet Maya for coffee on Saturday, not to discuss work, just to talk. "How's the cactus doing?" she asked as they sat at an outdoor cafe near his apartment. "Thriving," Garrett replied with a smile. "Though I'm not sure what that says about my office environment." Maya laughed. "It says you provide what it needs to grow. Some plants need constant attention. Cacti need space and occasional support." "Are we still talking about plants?" Garrett asked, raising an eyebrow. "Maybe not," Maya admitted, "but the metaphor works." The following week, Garrett met with the Tesla Foundation to discuss his veterans program idea. He had prepared a detailed proposal, drawing on his own experience of homelessness and recovery. "The key is dignity," he explained to the Foundation board. "Many veterans have valuable skills and work ethic, but they need a bridge back to civilian employment. Technical training, combined with support services, could provide that bridge." The foundation approved funding for a pilot program. Tesla would partner with local veterans organizations to identify candidates, provide training in battery manufacturing skills, and offer mentorship and support services. "You'll be the program director, of course," said the foundation chairwoman. "Your story is powerful, Garrett. It will inspire others." "I'm not sure I'm ready to be the public face of this," Garrett admitted. "I'm still adjusting to everything." "You don't have to share your whole story," she assured him. "Just enough to give others hope. Sometimes knowing someone else made it through can make all the difference." Garrett thought about it. For years, he'd hidden his past, ashamed of where he'd ended up. But maybe his journey, from engineer to homeless veteran to Tesla innovator, could help others see possibilities for themselves. "I'll consider it," he told her. Meanwhile, the improved Wilson battery design moved forward. Larger prototype cells confirmed the elimination of capacity loss. The production team began incorporating the changes into their plans for the second-generation battery. We should have updated units ready for testing in about 3 months, the production manager reported during a project meeting, just in time for the new Model S refresh. As the meeting ended, Dr. Lee pulled Garrett aside. Elon wants you to present at the next shareholders meeting just a brief technical overview of the Wilson battery and its advantages. Garrett's stomach tightened. Public speaking isn't really my thing. It's a small group, Dr. Lee said, and these people are already convinced. They're shareholders. They just want to understand what makes the technology special. Garrett thought of the Veterans Program and the importance of stepping outside his comfort zone. Okay, he said finally, I'll do it, but I might need some help preparing. Maya's excellent at presentations, Dr. Lee suggested. She could coach you. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Garrett split his time between the battery project, preparation for the shareholders presentation, and setting up the Veterans Program. It was busy. But fulfilling work in the evenings, he began mentoring a young engineer named Carlos, who showed exceptional promise but struggled with confidence. Garrett recognized his younger self in Carlos. Brilliant but unsure, afraid to speak up in meetings. Your ideas are good, Garrett told him after reviewing some calculations. You should share them more often. I'm afraid of looking stupid, Carlos admitted. Everyone else seems so confident. Trust me, Garrett said with a wry smile. Everyone feels that way sometimes. The trick is to focus on the problem, not on how you might be perceived. As Garrett helped Carlos grow more confident, he found his own confidence strengthening. Teaching forced him to articulate what he knew, to recognize his own expertise. Each time Carlos succeeded, Garrett felt a quiet pride, not just in his mentee, but in himself for being able to guide someone else. The week before the shareholders' back meeting, Garrett practiced his presentation for Maya in an empty conference room. You know this material inside and out, she assured him after his third run-through. Just remember to speak slowly and make eye contact occasionally. What if they ask questions I can't answer? Garrett worried. Then you say, that's an excellent question. I'll need to look into that further, Maya advised. No one expects you to know everything. The day of the presentation arrived. Garrett wore a new suit that Lila had helped him pick out during her last visit. As he waited to be called to the podium, he practiced the breathing techniques his therapist had taught him. When Elon introduced him as the brilliant mind behind their revolutionary battery technology, Garrett felt a moment of panic. Then he looked out at the audience and saw Maya and Dr. Lee smiling encouragingly from the back row. Good afternoon, he began, his voice steadier than he expected. Today I'd like to explain what makes the Wilson battery different from conventional lithium-ion technology. As he spoke, displaying slides of battery cross-sections and performance graphs, Garrett found himself relaxing. This was his element. Explaining technical concepts, sharing his knowledge. The shareholders listened attentively, nodding as he outlined the advantages of his design. Afterward, several board members approached to congratulate him. One, an older woman with silver hair, shook his hand warmly. Excellent presentation, Mr. Wilson, she said. Elon mentioned you came to Tesla through unusual circumstances. Garrett hesitated, then decided on honesty. Yes. He found me when I was homeless, living under the Golden Gate Bridge. I'd been working on these battery concepts for years, just using a notebook in public libraries. Instead of pity, he saw respect in her eyes. That's extraordinary dedication. Tesla is fortunate to have found you. I'm fortunate too, Garrett replied, and he meant it. That evening, as Garrett drove home, he reflected on how far he'd come, from sketching ideas in a rain-soaked notebook to presenting to Tesla shareholders. From sleeping under bridges to mentoring young engineers, from isolation to connection. The battery technology was important. It would help move the world towards sustainable energy. But equally important were the human connections he'd rebuilt, with Lila, with colleagues, with other veterans, and with himself. The solution to the battery problem had come when he stopped trying to be perfect and accepted help from others. Perhaps that was the solution to life's challenges as well. Not struggling alone, but working together to find a better way forward. 1 year after Elon found Garrett under the Golden Gate Bridge, Tesla was preparing for a major announcement. The Wilson battery had exceeded all expectations in testing and was ready for mass production. Cars equipped with the new technology would have significantly longer range, faster charging, and better performance in extreme temperatures. We need to make this a big event, Elon told the marketing team during a planning meeting. This isn't just an incremental improvement. It's a game changer for electric vehicles. Garrett sat quietly at the conference table, listening as they discussed venues, media strategies, and presentation formats. The Wilson battery was no longer just his idea. It had been refined and developed by an entire team. Still, as the original inventor, he would play a central role in the announcement. "We'd like you to demonstrate the technology on stage with Elon," the marketing director explained to Garrett after the meeting. "Nothing complicated, just explaining the key innovations in terms the public can understand." Garrett felt his chest tighten at the thought of speaking in front of hundreds of people, with cameras broadcasting to millions more online. The shareholders' presentation had been stressful enough, and that was a much smaller, friendlier audience. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for that," he said carefully. Doc Lee could explain it just as well. "The public is curious about you, Garrett," the director replied, "the mysterious engineer behind Tesla's breakthrough. Your story is compelling." "My story is private," Garrett said, more sharply than he intended. "Of course, we respect that, but consider this. Your journey could inspire others, especially veterans who are struggling." Garrett couldn't argue with that. His veterans training program was already showing promising results. 6 formerly homeless vets had completed the pilot and were now employed at Tesla. Their success gave him immense satisfaction. Still, the thought of standing in the spotlight made his palms sweat and his heart race. He had spent years being invisible. The idea of becoming a public figure was terrifying. That evening, Garrett called Leah for advice. Their weekly calls had become an anchor in his life, a reminder of what truly mattered beyond work. "What's the worst that could happen?" Leah asked practically. "You get nervous, forget what you're saying. People have seen worse. What if the media digs into my past? What if they start asking about the time I was homeless or my PTSD episodes?" "Then you decide how much to share," Leah said. "Your story belongs to you, Dad. You control how it's told." After they hung up, Garrett sat on his balcony watching the sunset. Maya's words from months ago echoed in his mind. "You control your story, Garrett, no one else." Maybe it was time to own his story, not all of it, but enough to show others that even the darkest times could lead to something meaningful. The next morning, Garrett met with Elon to discuss the announcement event. "I'll do it," he said, "but I need some control over how my background is presented." Elon nodded, understanding immediately. "Absolutely. We'll have PR work with you on exactly what you're comfortable sharing. No ambushes, no surprises." Over the next few weeks, Garrett worked with Tesla's public relations team to craft a simple narrative. Decorated veteran, engineer, innovator. They agreed that his period of homelessness could be mentioned, but not sensationalized. The focus would be on the technology and its potential impact, not on Garrett's personal struggles. Maya helped him prepare for the presentation, running through practice sessions in empty conference rooms. Carlos, the young engineer Garrett had been mentoring, offered to create the visual aids. "Keep it simple," Carlos advised. "People don't need to understand every technical detail. They just need to grasp why it matters." As the big day approached, another unexpected development arose. A major technology magazine wanted to feature Garrett in their Innovators of the Year issue. The interview would be conducted the day after Tesla's announcement. "It's your decision," Dr. Lee told him when he sought her advice. "But this could be an opportunity to shape the narrative yourself, rather than letting others define you." Garrett agreed to the interview with conditions. No photos of him at homeless shelters or under bridges, no dramatic reenactments of his lowest moments. Just an honest discussion of the technology and his unusual path to Tesla. The night before the big announcement, Garrett couldn't sleep. He paced his apartment, rehearsing his presentation and worrying about all the things that could go wrong. What if he froze on stage? What if his PTSD was triggered by the lights or crowd? What if people judged him once they knew his history? At 2 a.m., he called his therapist's emergency line. "I'm spiraling," he admitted. "Tomorrow's the big announcement, and I can't shut off the what-ifs." "That's natural," she assured him. "Public speaking anxiety is common, even for people without your history. Let's work through some grounding techniques." For the next half hour, she guided him through breathing exercises and visualization. By the time they finished, Garrett felt calmer. "Remember," she said before they hung up, "your worth isn't determined by a single performance. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already succeeded in so many important ways. Morning came too quickly. Garrett arrived at the venue, a large theater in downtown San Francisco, 3 hours early. Technicians were still setting up lights and cameras. The stage featured a large screen, and at center stage, a cutaway model of the Wilson battery that showed its innovative internal structure. Elon arrived shortly after, surprisingly calm despite the magnitude of the event. Nervous? He asked Garrett. Terrified, Garrett admitted. Good. I'd be worried if you weren't, Elon said. He checked his watch. I have a tradition before big announcements. Want to join me? Curious, that Garrett followed Elon to a quiet room backstage. There, Elon pulled out a small notebook. I write down 3 things, he explained. Why this matters, who it helps, what comes next. He handed Garrett a pen. Your turn. Garrett thought for a moment, then wrote, Why this matters. Clean energy, future, less pollution, energy independence. Who it helps, everyone who breathes air, families who need affordable, reliable transportation, future generations. What comes next? Continue improving, help others innovate, veterans program expansion. The exercise helped clarify his thoughts. This wasn't about him. It was about the technology and its potential to make the world better. As the theater filled with media and special guests, Garrett peered through the curtains. To his surprise, he spotted Lila in the front row, along with a young man who must be Ryan, her fiancé. Maya sat nearby with Dr. Lee and several members of the battery team. Seeing their supportive faces calmed his nerves. He wasn't alone on stage, not really. He carried with him everyone who had helped him reach this point. The lights dimmed. An introduction video played, highlighting Tesla's mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Then Elon walked on stage to enthusiastic applause. Today, we're announcing a technological breakthrough that will transform electric vehicles, Elon began. But first, I want to share an unusual story about innovation, second chances, and the remarkable places where great ideas can be found. Elon briefly recounted finding Garrett under the bridge, discovering his notebook, and recognizing the potential of his battery design. He kept the details respectful, focusing on Garrett's engineering insights rather than his personal struggles. Please welcome to the stage the inventor of the Wilson battery, Garrett Wilson. Taking a deep breath, Garrett walked on stage. The lights were bright, the audience a blur of faces. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm him, but then he saw Lila smiling encouragingly, and he found his voice. Thank you, he began. The Wilson battery represents a new approach to energy storage. As he explained the technology, pointing out features on the model, Garrett felt his nervousness fade. This was the easy part, talking about the work he loved, the innovations he understood intimately. The audience listened attentively, nodding as he described the advantages of his design. When he finished his technical explanation, Garrett paused. He had planned to simply hand the presentation back to Elon. But suddenly he felt compelled to add something more personal. Before I go, he said, I want to share one thought. Innovation can come from anywhere, even unlikely places. If there's something you believe in, something you want to create or improve, don't let circumstances stop you. Find a way to keep working on it, even when it seems impossible. The applause as he left the stage was thunderous. Backstage, Elon gave him a quick nod of approval before returning to complete the presentation. Garrett watched the rest of the event on a monitor, marveling at how smoothly it had gone. No panic attacks, no embarrassing mistakes, just a clear explanation of technology he was proud to have created. Afterward, there was a small reception for the team and special guests. Leela hugged him tightly. You were amazing, Dad, she said, eyes shining, so poised and knowledgeable. Thanks for coming, Garrett replied. It meant everything to see you there. We wouldn't have missed it, Ryan said, shaking Garrett's hand. It's an honor to finally meet you. Layla talks about you all the time. As they chatted, Garrett noticed a man standing nearby, watching him with an odd intensity. The man was in his 60s, well-dressed in an expensive suit. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar, though Garrett couldn't place him. Excuse me, the man said, approaching. Mr. Wilson, I'm Senator James Harrison. I wonder if I might have a word with you in private. Garrett glanced at Lila, puzzled. Can it wait? I'm catching up with my daughter. I'm afraid it's rather urgent, the senator insisted. It concerns your work at Livermore Labs many years ago. Garrett felt a chill run down his spine. His classified work at Livermore was something he never discussed, not even with Elon. "I'll just be a moment," he told Lila, then followed the senator to a quiet corner of the room. "What's this about?" Garrett asked cautiously. "Your battery design," Harrison said quietly. "It bears a striking resemblance to Project Condor, a classified energy storage initiative you worked on before your military service. An initiative that was shut down under mysterious circumstances." Garrett kept his expression neutral, though his heart was racing. "I'm not at liberty to discuss classified projects, Senator." "Of course not," Harrison smiled thinly. "I just find it interesting that technology too sensitive for development decades ago has suddenly appeared in Tesla's new battery technology." "It evolves," Garrett said carefully. "What was impractical then might be achievable now." "Perhaps," Harrison said. He handed Garrett a business card. "We should continue this conversation soon. The Department of Energy has questions." As the senator walked away, Garrett stood frozen, like secretly, the card clutched in his hand. Project Condor, a name he hadn't heard in decades. A project he'd believed was buried forever. The Wilson Batteries Foundation did indeed come from concepts he'd worked on at Livermore, concepts that had been deemed too revolutionary, too disruptive to existing energy interests, projects that powerful people had wanted kept secret. Garrett looked across the room at Elon, at his team, at his daughter. They were celebrating a technological breakthrough that would help move the world toward clean energy, but that celebration might be short-lived if certain aspects of the battery's origins came to light. As he rejoined Layla, Garrett maintained his smile, not wanting to worry her. But inside, he felt the first stirrings of fear. Going public with the Wilson battery had been a risk, one that might have consequences he hadn't anticipated. What would happen when the world learned the full truth about his invention? The morning after the Tesla announcement, Garrett sat in his apartment staring at Senator Harrison's business card. His hands trembled slightly as memories of Project Condor flooded back, memories he'd tried to bury for decades. His phone rang, startling him. It was Elon. "The response has been incredible," Elon said enthusiastically. "Stock is up 22%. Pre-orders for the new models are breaking records. You're a hero." "Thanks," Garrett replied, trying to sound normal. "It was a team effort. Don't forget your magazine interview this afternoon. This is just the beginning." After they hung up, Garrett paced his apartment. Should he tell Elon about the senator? About Project Condor? The classified work had been so long ago, before Desert Storm, before his marriage to Linda, before homelessness and Tesla and everything in between. He called Maya, needing someone to talk to. "Can you meet for coffee?" he asked. Something's happened. 30 minutes later, they sat at a quiet table in the back of their usual cafe. Garrett kept his voice low as he explained. "Before the Army, my work at Livermore wasn't just regular research," he said. "I was part of a classified program developing advanced energy storage for military applications, Project Condor." Maya's eyes widened. "And your battery technology has its roots there?" Garrett confirmed. "The basic principles are similar, though I've refined everything substantially over the years." "Is that a problem? Legally, I mean?" Garrett ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know. The project was shut down suddenly, officially because of budget cuts. Unofficially," he leaned closer, "I always suspected it was because the technology threatened powerful interests in the fossil fuel industry. Energy independence wasn't popular with everyone, and now this senator knows. He claims to." "I'm not sure how much he actually knows versus what he's fishing for," Garrett sighed. "The question is, what do I do now?" Maya thought for a moment. "You should talk to Elon. Tesla has good lawyers. If there are any legal issues, better to address them proactively." Garrett nodded slowly. "You're right. No more secrets. That's what got me into trouble in the first place." After coffee, Garrett called Elon and arranged to meet at Tesla headquarters before the magazine interview. He arrived early, rehearsing what he would say. Elon listened without interrupting as Garrett explained about Project Condor, the sudden shutdown, and Senator Harrison's approach at the event. "Let me get this straight," Elon said when Garrett finished. "You worked on advanced battery technology for the government. The project was killed, possibly due to fossil fuel industry pressure, and now, decades later, you've independently developed those concepts into something viable?" "That's the short version." Yes. Elon tapped his fingers on the desk, thinking. Did you sign a lifetime confidentiality agreement about the specific technology? No, just standard classified information protections. I've never revealed the military applications we were developing, only used the basic scientific principles. Then I don't see the legal problem. You didn't steal anything. You evolved concepts using your own brain. Elon's eyes narrowed. This senator, what exactly did he want? He didn't say specifically, just that the Department of Energy has questions. He could be legitimate, could be pressure tactics. Elon picked up his phone. Let me make some calls. We'll get our legal team on this before your interview. Within an hour, Garrett sat with Elon and Tesla's chief counsel, explaining the situation in detail. The lawyer took copious notes, occasionally asking for clarification about timelines and specific technologies. Based on what you've told me, she said finally, I don't see any clear legal exposure. The core concepts weren't patented by the government. The project was officially terminated. You've made substantial independent innovations since then. What about security clearance violations? Garrett asked. You haven't revealed classified military applications, you just used underlying scientific principles. That's a gray area. But defensible? She closed her notebook for your interview today. Stick to the current technology. If asked about your early career, keep it general. We'll handle any official inquiries that come through proper channels. Garrett left feeling somewhat reassured, though a knot of worry remained in his stomach. The lawyer seemed confident, but the government had resources and motivations that were hard to predict. The magazine interview took place in a hotel suite downtown. The journalist, a woman named Priya Jenkins, was known for her in-depth profiles of technology innovators. Mr. Wilson, she began after they settled into comfortable chairs, your story is fascinating, from veteran to homeless to Tesla's star inventor. Let's start with your background in engineering. Garrett gave carefully considered answers, focusing on his education and general experience while avoiding specific mentions of classified work. The interview flowed smoothly until Priya asked an unexpected question. Sources suggest you once worked on advanced energy storage concepts for the military. Did that experience influence the Wilson battery design? Garrett maintained his composure, remembering the lawyer's advice. My early career included various research positions, some involving government projects. All engineers are influenced by their cumulative experiences, but the Wilson battery represents new innovations developed during my time at Tesla. Priya nodded, making notes. One more question about your background. During your period of homelessness, how did you continue developing these complex ideas without resources or equipment? This question felt safer, more personal. Garrett described using public libraries, salvaging discarded textbooks, and keeping his mind active through theoretical calculations. The constraints actually forced creative thinking, he explained. Without access to conventional approaches, I had to find different paths to the same goals. After the interview, Garrett felt drained but relieved. He had navigated the questions without revealing anything inappropriate while still sharing his genuine journey. Back at his apartment that evening, Garrett found an unexpected visitor waiting in the lobby. Senator Harrison, Mr. Wilson, the senator, said smoothly. I was hoping we could continue our conversation. Garrett considered refusing, but decided it was better to understand exactly what Harrison wanted. He led the senator to a public bench outside the building, neutral territory where they could talk privately, but still be in view of others. What is this really about, Senator? Garrett asked directly. Harrison smiled thinly. Project Condor was ahead of its time. That your recent innovations have renewed certain interests in its potential applications. The Wilson battery is for civilian use, Garrett said firmly. Electric vehicles, renewable energy storage, of course, but the technology has other applications, as you well know. Harrison leaned closer. The Department of Energy, in conjunction with DoD, would like to offer you a consulting position. Very well compensated, very prestigious. Now, Garrett understood. This wasn't about legal problems. It was about recruitment. The government wanted access to his innovations for military purposes. I appreciate the interest, Garrett said carefully, but my work at Tesla keeps me fully occupied. This wouldn't interfere, Harrison replied. Just occasional consulting, sharing insights. Harrison's voice hardened slightly. The alternative might involve a formal review of whether classified concepts were appropriately protected. The threat was subtle but clear. Cooperate or face investigation. Garrett stood up. I'll need to think about it and discuss it with my employer, of course. But don't wait too long. Harrison handed him another card. My direct line. I'll expect your call within the week. After the senator left, Garrett called Elon immediately and explained the encounter, a thinly veiled threat to force government cooperation. Elon summarized, classic tactics. What should I do? Come to my office tomorrow morning, Elon replied. We'll discuss options. And Garrett, don't worry. Tesla protects its people. That night, Garrett slept poorly, haunted by memories of Project Condor and worries about its implications for his future. He had finally rebuilt his life, reconnected with Lila, and found meaningful work. Would government interference derail everything? The next morning, Garrett arrived at Elon's office to find several people waiting. Tesla's chief counsel, a former Department of Justice attorney now in private practice, and surprisingly, Dr. Lee. We've been discussing your situation, Elon explained, and we have a proposal. The plan they outlined was bold. Tesla would publicly disclose the Wilson battery's core technology through comprehensive patents, but with a twist. The patents would be open source, available for anyone to use in good faith, the attorney explained. By putting the EIDE technology in the public domain, we remove the classified mystique. It becomes impossible to claim you've inappropriately disclosed secret information when the information is publicly available. Won't that hurt Tesla commercially? Garrett asked, surprised. Not necessarily, Elon replied. We maintain our manufacturing advantage and head start, but we accelerate adoption of clean energy technology worldwide. It's consistent with Tesla's mission, and it makes government strong arming much more difficult. Dr. Lee added, they can't easily put the genie back in the bottle once the technology is public. Garrett considered the proposal. It was elegant, protecting him while advancing Tesla's broader goals. But there was still a risk. What about Harrison's threats of investigation? We document everything, the lawyer said. Every conversation, every implied threat. If they pursue harassment tactics, we're prepared to fight publicly. The optics would be terrible for them, attacking a homeless veteran who developed clean energy technology. The strategy session continued for hours, refining details and contingency plans. By afternoon, Garrett felt cautiously optimistic. Tesla wasn't just defending him. They were transforming a potential threat into an opportunity to advance their mission. 2 days later, Tesla made another announcement. They would open source the Wilson battery patents, making the technology available to advance clean energy adoption worldwide. The press release emphasized the importance of collaboration in addressing climate change. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Environmental groups praised Tesla's leadership. Other manufacturers expressed interest in licensing arrangements. Tesla's stock, after a brief dip, climbed higher as analysts recognized the long-term strategic benefits. Senator Harrison called Garrett the same day. This changes nothing, he said coldly. The military applications remain sensitive. Actually, Senator, Garrett replied with newfound confidence, it changes everything. My attorney will be in touch to discuss any specific concerns through proper channels. Good day. In the weeks that followed, the Wilson battery began production. Cars equipped with the new technology received rave reviews. Tesla's energy storage business expanded dramatically. And true to his word, Elon supported the Veterans Training Program, which grew to include facilities in 3 cities. The government never pursued formal action against Garrett, whether deterred by the public nature of the technology or unwilling to face Tesla's legal team. They retreated to occasional requests for technical consultation, which Garrett provided only when appropriate and transparent. 1 year after the Wilson battery announcement, Garrett stood on a different stage, the small garden where Lila was getting married. As he prepared to walk his daughter down the aisle, he reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought him here, from engineer to soldier, from husband to widower, from homeowner to homeless, from invisible to inventor. A journey of loss and recovery, of breakdown and rebuilding. The Wilson battery had changed the world of energy storage, but more importantly, the process of creating it had changed Garrett himself, helping him reconnect with his daughter, find new purpose, and build a community of colleagues and friends. As the music began and Leah took his arm, Garrett felt a profound sense of gratitude for Elon, stopping to help a homeless veteran in the rain, for Maya's friendship during difficult times, for Dr. Lee's professional respect, for Leah's forgiveness and love. "Ready, Dad?" Leah whispered, radiant in her wedding gown. "Ready," Garrett replied, his heart full. Together, they stepped forward into the future, a future brighter and more hopeful than either could have imagined. On that rainy night under the Golden Gate Bridge, when an unexpected encounter between a tech billionaire and a homeless veteran changed both their lives forever. And that was the real breakthrough. Not the battery technology, remarkable as it was, but the human connections that made it possible. The innovation of kindness.